Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. I'm sitting here again at Aoyama Park late in the afternoon on Saturday. It's my first chance to get outside today. I've been busy at my desk all day long, catching up on orders and paperwork and other kinds of stuff, and this is the first chance I've had to get out today and enjoy the fresh air. I figured I'd come out here and try to make a video before it gets too dark. It's a wonderful weekend here in Tokyo, and the last weekend for people to get out before the normal work life returns. Monday will be June 1st. That is the day which schools are set to reopen here, and the day which office workers, government workers, and everyone else will be returning to their normal work life. Maybe there are some people who are going to miss working at home and not going to school and the usual routine. I'm not one of them. I will be glad when everything is back to normal here. And though it won't be 100% normal just because it's turning to June 1st, it's a big step. And hopefully over the next few weeks and months, the world returns to some kind of normal mode. Anyway, while I'm out here, I'll go ahead and talk about the camera I'm going to be describing today. It's a camera which I've received a lot of inquiries about over the last couple of months. A camera which has been really popular with rangefinder photography enthusiasts, street photographers, and the like, and that is the Canonet QL17 rangefinder camera. This particular one is the GIII version, which was the last of the Canonet rangefinder cameras produced. The original Canonet was introduced around 1960 or so, and it was kind of an oddity. It was designed for the main market, but it didn't really catch on, mainly because it was a big and heavy camera, and it had kind of an awkward trigger winding system on the bottom, and it had this big ugly selenium light meter cell which went around the front of the lens. It was too big for the Japanese people of the time to carry around, and bigger than Canon's professional rangefinder cameras like the Canon 7 and the Canon P. Canon quickly caught on to what people thought about the camera, and the next version was a bit smaller and more compact with a conventional winding lever on the top. And over the years, as the camera evolved, it became smaller and lighter until we ended up with the GIII version, which I would consider a compact rangefinder camera. So let's go ahead and take a look at the features and functions of the Canonet QL17, and we'll start with the lens. The lens is a 40mm f1.7 lens. There were two other lenses available, an f1.9 lens and an f2.8 lens. These other lenses came on the QL19 and QL28 cameras. The lenses are different in the three cameras, but everything else in the camera is the same. And everything else I'm going to say about the Canonet QL17 also applies to the QL19 and QL28. Moving to the top here, we have obviously the film rewind knob, and lever pops out to make it a little easier to rewind those longer rolls of film. To open the film door, you simply pull up on the rewind knob and it pops open. Next to that, we have the shoe for mounting the flash. The Canonet QL17 features a hot shoe, so you can easily mount a modern strobe flash to it, or if you're lucky enough to have one of the original Canon Light D flash units, which was an accessory option available for the Canonet QL17, you can simply slide it on, and then you have automatic flash control built into the camera. Moving over here, we have the film winder or film counter window, which lets you know how many exposures. It runs up to 36 exposures, as it does in most cameras. And next to that, we have an integrated film winding, shutter charging, and shutter release apparatus here. And this is a good feature to these cameras. Everything is right in this one spot. I like having the shutter button located right in the middle of the film winding lever. It's very convenient, and you can attach a standard cable release to the Canonet QL17 GIII. Moving to the back here, we have the viewfinder window with a big plastic bezel on it with a battery check function. Prior to the Canonet GIII, there was a camera called the new Canonet, and other than the addition of this battery check feature, they are the identical camera. The new Canonet and the Canonet GIII are exactly the same. If you come across one of the new Canonets, quite easy, they look exactly the same, except they don't have the GIII emblem on the front, and they don't have the battery check lamp. They may have a battery check system, but it works kind of like the other Canonet models, or Canon models, where you push the button and it causes the meter needle to move to a designated mark in the viewfinder. Moving over, we have this chrome button on the back, and it's not actually a button, it's a cap screw which covers the adjustment for the vertical adjustment for the rangefinder. To make the vertical adjustment, you have to remove this cap screw, and you'll find the adjusting screw located underneath. To adjust the horizontal adjustment, you have to lift up and remove this metal cover on the flash shoe, and you'll find the access port underneath. You can use a small slotted screwdriver to adjust the horizontal and vertical adjustment. Moving over here, we have a film loaded indicator. So if there's film in the camera, this will show orange. And then here we have a shutter charge indicator. So when the shutter is charged, or when you wind the shutter, this should also show orange. And when you depress the shutter button, it will turn white again. On the bottom of the camera here, we have the access to the battery chamber. We have a standard 1/4 inch tripod socket, and we have the release button which you must depress to rewind the film. In the front here we have the viewfinder window and the rangefinder window. One of the wonderful features about the Canonet QL17 is it has a really large and bright viewfinder with a really contrasty rangefinder system. And it also features a parallax correction, which is a feature which is hard to find on compact rangefinder cameras. This one and only a couple of other the smaller rangefinder cameras include parallax correction. Most just simply have, I guess, dual frame lines for infinity and close focus. So a really good feature for these. Being this is a fixed lens rangefinder camera, most of the important controls are going to be on the lens body. On the bottom here we have the focusing ring with a convenient focusing tab. And then we have the focusing scale, which is in feet and meters. Above that we have the self-timer lever, and if you've seen some of my other videos, you know I recommend never using the self-timer on a vintage camera. These are very fragile and they don't hold up well over time. The gears are made out of carbon steel, which are prone to rusting, and there are compression washers which are used to line up the gears in the self-timer, and these become stuck or corroded and can cause the self-timer to stick at any time. And when the self-timer sticks, then the shutter won't operate and then the camera simply won't work. Sometimes you can force the self-timer to go to the end of its travel and then get the shutter to work, but usually you just have to either remove the self-timer or replace it altogether or disable it in some way. Above the self-timer lever we have the aperture ring, which on the QL17 runs from f1.7 to f16 and also allows you to select the automatic system for automatic control, and it also has a few guide numbers here when you're using the built-in flash. In front of the aperture ring you have the window which shows the film speed, and to adjust the film speed to match what you have loaded in your camera, there's a tab on this side. You push in with your fingernail and simply move it up or down until it matches the film which you have loaded in the camera. And of course in front of this we have the ring which selects the shutter speeds. There is a range from bulb to 1/500th of a second. To get the camera to go into the bulb mode you have to push in this switch on the lower left side of the lens, and then you can use the bulb mode. Not so many cameras from this era had the bulb mode. A lot of them did away with it, especially the ones with the electronically controlled shutters. Being that the Canonet QL17 has a mechanical shutter, they were able to retain the bulb mode. So let's go ahead and discuss the operation of the Canonet QL17, because though this is basically an easy camera to use and operate, it's a little bit difficult for some beginners or people who are new to these cameras. The reason this is because of this automatic system. Now the Canonet QL17 is a shutter priority automatic camera when you use it in the A mode, which means you switch the aperture ring to the A mode and then you select the shutter speed which you want to use to take a photograph. Often we will choose the speed which is the slowest one we feel comfortable with when shooting handheld, and then when we depress the shutter the camera will automatically choose the correct aperture. The problem is that in the Canonet QL17 the light meter works only if you have it in auto mode. If you have it in any other mode the light meter doesn't work. Another problem that you can run across in these cameras is that if the battery dies and you have the aperture ring set to the red A, the shutter will not fire. if the battery is dead or there's no battery in the camera. A lot of people will buy one of these cameras and they'll go ahead and start messing around with it, and they can't get the shutter to work. And it's not because the shutter is broken, it's just because it's set to the A mode. If you simply move it over to one of the aperture settings, the shutter will fire like that. And another thing to be careful of when you're shooting in automatic mode is to make sure that you're not using a shutter speed which is too slow or too fast for the available light. If you are, and the camera is not able to select an aperture to go along with your shutter speed setting, the shutter will not fire. Some things to look for when you are buying a Canonet QL17. The most important thing is the quality of the lens. The QL17 and the other Canonet cameras feature outstanding lenses with a wonderful optical design. They deliver great contrast and sharpness. The only problem is that the glass in these is not very durable. The coating is very easily scratched, and many of the lenses which I find have cleaning marks on them, which are very difficult to see unless you look closely. And also these lenses are very prone to fungus and fungus etching. No camera lens, no lens which I've ever come across is more easily damaged by fungus than the Canonet QL17 or QL series lenses. Just a little bit of fungus can leave permanent damage to the lens. So these really have to be kept clean and kept in a nice, safe and dry and warm environment to keep away the fungus. Another thing to look for in these cameras is haze in the lens. The most obvious place for haze is in the front element, and when you look at it, it usually looks kind of like a donut of opaqueness. It can be just a little bit or a lot, depending on how bad it is. And once again, this has to do with how well the camera is stored. If it's stored in the place where it's cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and humid in the summer and cold, dry in the winter, this tends to cause the glass in the lens to haze. And this haze is not removable, it's permanent. Not only do you have to check the front element for these problems, you have to open up the back and check the rear element. Inside the film compartment is a wonderful place for fungus to grow. And unfortunately, the rear element has the same thin coating that the front element has. 9 out of 10 of these cameras which I come across have some kind of damage to the lens coating or some amount of haze. Most of the time, it doesn't make much of a difference in the quality of the photographs. A little bit of etching, a few spots or cleaning marks don't really make any difference. It has to start to become very obvious. If you can see it, if you can see the marks on the lens without looking at with a magnifier, then there might be enough damage to cause some influence on the photos. If you need a magnifier to see the marks, more than likely it's not really going to have much of an effect on the photos. Another thing to check for is corrosion in the battery compartment. You open the door like so, and the mercury batteries, which were original to these cameras, were prone to letting out gases which corroded everything. This one here is a little bit tarnished, but there's no corrosion, so you have to keep an eye on that. When you're using a battery for one of these, I recommend using a wine cell battery. That seems to give the most accurate results for the light meter and the automatic operation. But on the other hand, if you're using one of these cameras seriously, I wouldn't rely on the built-in light meter. They're not very accurate, and I simply don't like them that much. These are wonderful camera for using just as a manual camera. For one thing, you don't have to worry about the shutter locking up on you unexpected. If you have it in one of the manual modes or manual settings, when you push the shutter button, the camera is going to take a photograph. It may not be properly exposed, but it should be good enough, and at least it works. And another problem that I have with the light meters in these is that when Canon built these at the factory and adjusted the light meters, they adjusted them by using a neutral density film, which they put in sheets in front of the light meter cell. Usually lighter color, dark color, medium color, whatever it is. This neutral density film tends to get darker over time and can lead you to getting overexposed images when you're using the auto mode. So if you're going to use the Canonet QL17, I recommend using a light meter app or a handheld light meter. That will give you the best results. But yeah, the handling of these cameras is wonderful. They fit very well in the hand. Everything is right where you can reach it easily. There's a reason why these are so popular with photographers over the years. They're just a really well made, very easy to use camera with an excellent lens which takes wonderful photographs. Unfortunately, I don't come across very many of these in good condition lately. This one came in the mail this week, and though it's a clean looking camera and works and will take good photos, unfortunately the light meter doesn't work on it, and of course like 9 out of 10 of these cameras have, there are some marks and stuff to the lens, but otherwise it's quite a good camera. But anyway, that's it for my video about the Canonet QL17 GIII. If you're interested in buying this Canonet or another vintage Japanese camera, I sell these in my Etsy and eBay stores. Please check the description below the video for links to my stores. If you are interested in seeing more videos about vintage Japanese cameras or film photography, please subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.